What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this, I want to break down what's happening with NIO and the overall market. Just know that I am not a financial planner. So, as far as the market's going, NIO saw a bit of a sell-off with the broader markets. We're down about 0.5%, which is not too bad, but there is a risk of more downside if these rejections continue. Now, it's not just NIO; the entire market came down quite a bit as we saw more and more rejections continuing. So, just keep that in mind. That's part of why the market's kind of like moving this way. So what's going on so far? Why is the market selling off and what's happening with NIO? One thing you must know is that the whole market came down. Apple sold off quite a bit, so did Nvda, Amazon, many other tech stocks. And this happened as a result of some news. There's not much changing with NIO. The price ratio is dipping a bit though, which shows some weakness. And to add on to this, I just want to say that when it comes to NIO, even with the low interest rates and the abundant liquidity in the stock markets, there's been a lot of talk about how fundamentally we are seeing NIO improving, and with the fundamentals, it could really help the share price for the longer term. I'm seeing lots of talk about that as the fundamentals are backing NIO to rebound, especially as their gross margins are continuing to increase. But simultaneously, the international markets could help them. But the thing is, for the short term, we might see a little downside before we end up seeing a much larger recovery phase to come later on once we get a lot of things together. So I hope that's as clear as possible. I am still a big bull for the long term. For the short term, however, we're just kind of consolidating. We're kind of stuck until we get these much larger improvements. But the fundamentals are improving to really back up a much higher share price. Now, why is the market dipping? The first thing you have to know is that the 30-year yields are still very, very high. And we're continuing to see yields going up as a result of higher interest rates and a lot of higher borrowing rates for households and businesses. That's part of why the market is down a bit, alongside the fact that there are negative technicals. Secondly, there's been a lot of tensions between the U.S. and China over chips, whether it's considered some kind of violation or not for U.S. companies to be using Chinese chips. That's to be determined, but obviously China's not happy about this potential regulation, and as a result, there's a lot of tensions. There's also lots of tensions between Israel and Iran right now. There's a possibility that Israel could be getting ready to strike Iran's nuclear facilities if Iran does not necessarily negotiate with the U.S. in a nuclear deal. There's obviously a long history between the countries. I don't want to go over all the details, and that's not what my intention is. But there's a lot of history between them that leads up to this moment. You have to account for that. So I would recommend just doing your own research if you want to look into that. But that's part of why the market's also down, the tensions that are rising. Right now, there's not much data coming out. Tomorrow we just have initial jobless claims, but we do have some PMI data coming out at 9:45, so it might cause some volatility. So get ready for that. Then we have some more manufacturing numbers coming out for tomorrow. Right now, the market's at greed, but it's becoming less greedy as time goes on. And also, we had Target's earnings, which did not do too well as they're expecting to see prices going up. Their earnings were very poor, and their guidance ended up falling as a result. So what do I see for NIO? We had this nice wedge as we got tighter and tighter, but as you guys could tell, we are on a downtrend. I do believe that we may attempt to rebound here towards the resistance near just under 4. And if we can't break and hold above that, we're going to be at risk of tipping lower all the way down towards where this gap is. So there's going to be a risk of some downside as time goes on. So keep that in mind. As far as SPY is going, we're looking relatively weak. We're looking at this 585 area to see if that holds. If it does, we're going to be at risk of seeing not only 580, but all the way down to like that 577 area is going to be coming next. We got this big rejection as a result of us failing to break and holding above 592. Could see a little rebound move before it starts to dump towards 580 flats or below, but there is more downside potential on SPY. On the QQQ, it's the same thing. It's relatively weak. We do expect this to be dumping towards 508 very soon to come back down to this level. I do expect that. We'll see if we get a rebound move first before it continues, but otherwise, I do expect 508 or below. The IWM still has a gap to fill all the way down towards 201, so it might pop before it starts to dip to 201. ES is looking relatively weak here. We have to see if we could hold 5850. If not, 5800 flats is likely coming for more downside. I do expect more downside. On NQ, we're at support here. We'll see if we get a rebound before falling to about 21,000 flats. And if that fails us, we're looking for 20,800 for more downside. Bitcoin's on a bit of an uptrend. We're going to see how it reacts to about 109,000. For Tesla, we got this rejection. We were in this tight range, but we're continuing to fall. We're looking for this 330 area as our main support. If that does not hold on Tesla, we're going to be at risk of dipping towards 325. So keep that in mind. For Nvidia, we're on a downtrend. We're continuing to fall right now, and I do anticipate 130. We'll have to see if that holds. If not, we could be dipping all the way down towards 128. For Apple, we're also on a downtrend. As you guys can tell, we're continuing to fall to fill this gap, which could take us all the way down to 198. AMD is technically on a downtrend. It's also falling right over here. We're going to be looking for a target back down towards 110 or below. For Coinbase, we're rejecting. We have a triple top leg structure, which would take us all the way down to at least 254 to 250. On Amazon, we have to hold 200. If not, we're looking for 193 as our target for more downside. There is a risk of more downside looking at Amazon's chart. Meta is rejecting as well right here. We have to see if we can hold above 640. If not, we're going to be at risk of dipping all the way down towards these lows over here. I do expect us to retest like 625 or below. Google's trying to rebound here. It's actually showing some resilience, but we have to see if we could hold above 170. If not, we're going to be dipping to 167. So overall, it's holding up well. I think we had some good news. Microsoft is at 452. It might be dipping to 415. We'll have to see what happens after that. The VIX is looking bullish. We have an inverse head and shoulders right here, and this could be pushing higher to fill this gap up to about 22. Then we'll see what else happens as time goes on. But with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for listening. We're getting this big rejection in SPY and for the broader markets, and there is going to be a risk of more downside as time goes on. So keep that in mind. There might be a small rebound first before it starts to dump, so just keep that in mind as well. And also when it comes to NIO, we are technically looking kind of weak right now. We'll see if we end up retesting forward to continue to fall to about 3.8s to come down to fill this gap. So keep that in mind. There is some downside potential with the tangents between the US and China. And also because the overall market is selling off a bit. So I think this could actually drag us down just a little bit lower. And we'll see if we base at 3.8. Anyways, I thank you all so much for listening. So please enjoy the rest of your day. This is just a very, very quick update, and peace out.